Hello, everyone. Welcome to Quantum Catechesis. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you are not a mystery for which you should be grateful to God every day. And today is a special edition. We're recording this live for us. It's not live for you, although I assume when you're listening to it, Dr. Aaron and I will still be alive. If we are not, please send all donations
to me.
To Dr. Aaron's family. I don't have kids. Send them to his family. But anyway, all kidding aside, we are now entering the second part of a 2 or 3 part, who knows, right, series on the current situation in Ukraine, as well as some of the past that got us there. So we are joined by Dr. Aaron Walter, who is our show's premier historian. In fact, I double-checked, Dr. Aaron, you are our highest paid historian on our staff. I don't know.
Well, thank you, because that considering that the salary is half a zero.
Yes. In fact,
I'm honored,
bro.
I'm honored. Thank you.
I'm doubling it right now. Double. Yeah.
Well,
you can't hear, but the crowd is clapping. Yeah.
Well, I hope Carrie's not jealous, because now I get paid more than she does.
Yeah. No, Carrie is drunk. She's barely aware that you and I are in the room.
I work for the alcohol.
Yeah, she works for the booze. And she prefers that's one, Carrie. You got to go potato vodka or rye vodka. You got to put that. So we've got a couple for your speed round. We've prepared our incredible staff of is working diligently by the hour to prepare a European edition of the speed round.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know what I got to ask you? This is so off topic, but I am dying to know. Okay, so You've not been in the States, like living in the States for a while, but one of the things that's really kind of blown up in the last 10 years is street tacos. Do you know about this?
Oh, the street food, like generally speaking.
Yeah,
street food.
like these cats have a food truck, and you can just roll up and drop cash and walk away with tacos. Brother, do they have this in Vilnius?
Well,
do they have street tacos?
They do. They have the concept of street food and the vendors is there.
Okay.
But there's the people that will go are within a very specific age group.
Oh, sure.
because the mentality is like, I had to not only introduce the concept to my wife, but I also had to explain that the food is actually safe to eat. It's healthy.
Oh,
generally
sure.
and it's okay. Because, wait, you're going to go and what?
So who goes then? What age group? Is it the old people going?
No, it's the kind of like from the 16 to like the 25-year-olds, because they're used to it either from going to the U.S. For vacation, or working, or of course through the movies, So like they're familiar with the concept. But if you get somebody who's over the age of 50, or my wife is not that old, but in my wife's case, it's just she was unfamiliar with the idea of. Street food sounds bad, right? Street food. Yeah. So, or vending trucks, what? So.
Well, this is.
But they have it here. It's awesome.
And one of the main reasons I can't move to Europe, right, despite my love for Europe, is because you don't have Mexicans. I'm sorry.
Well,
you don't have Mexicans.
Yeah.
Mexicans make everything better. And that's just a fact.
There was a Mexican restaurant, and they had a Mexican restaurant which was here in Vilnius for about 20 years.
When it was run by
I unfortunately was never able to go to Tres Amigos, but it was there. It was there. And then here's the funny thing: the guy who was Mexican, he was authentically Mexican.
Get out of here! I'll move.
But no. Well, you're gonna have to move to Ireland. He met an Irish girl, married her, and then moved to Ireland.
Oh my gosh!
Like out of all the places that a Mexican and an Irish person could meet, it's in Vilnius. And then of course they decided they moved. They
end up with a kid named Seamus Garcia. Yeah.
Probably.
So I'm telling you, a country without Mexicans is lost. This is Russia's problem. You know, they just don't have any Mexicans. They're telling them, you know what, work hard, love your family, and have a good day.
But there's a great place here that serves just top-notch burritos, and their brisket burrito is to die for.
Brisket
is to die for. Brisket burrito, and it's called No Forks, and I love it because it's basically Tex-Mex.
Yeah,
and it's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, now that we've covered the important stuff, let's get to the things,
yeah,
the silly
let's
things.
go on to,
yes.
What are we talking about? Oh, food again.
Something about God and Jesus or something. So, Doc, as you know, last we left our hero, we were talking about the situation in Ukraine. You've loaded us up with a ton of wonderful information. And now I've got two kinds of questions. A few more of mine, and then we've got questions from God's people, okay? So first, and this is maybe random, but Pripyat, right? I never knew that was in the Ukraine. In Ukraine. I was always, no, it's in Russia, right? The Chernobyl meltdown. And it wasn't until HBO did that amazing 7-part thing on Chernobyl. Probably one of the best things. I put that in the top 10 things I've ever seen on TV.
I would agree.
Ukrainians in Pripyat, right? I don't know a great way to ask this. Are Ukrainians angry at the Russians for that? Or is that just far enough back now where it's like, whatever, what's done is done?
You know what's interesting is I don't think that there's anger that they had to leave their homes and that basically became a ghost town. That the anger is not for that. Interesting enough, the anger is at the Russian leadership.
Yes.
And it's a sour taste, but not for what you might think.
Okay.
It's not that, Chernobyl like half blew up and everything's now contaminated. It's how the leadership treated the situation. Yeah. Now, the Soviet style throughout the Cold War, which was basically deny, maybe something happened. Deny, okay, yes, something did happen, and you know, like in Hunt for October, you lost another submarine. You know, like finally when the truth has to come out. Yeah. But what really irked Ukrainians is that 2 days after Chernobyl exploded, they held the May 1st parade in Kiev. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you why that's significant. It's significant because this centuries-old covenant, I'll use the word covenant here, maybe contract, we were talking about Leviathan earlier, but this centuries-old link between the ruler and the people was broken. It's like it was there in 86, that event, and then of course when they found out afterwards it happened, it was kind of like their French Revolution, and Marie Antoinette let them eat cake, and they can have cake and eat it too. Instead of being told there's a situation in Chernobyl, we're canceling the parade, go inside your homes and think about the heroic workers that are trying, the heroic workers that died, the heroic workers that are still there. It was, we're not even going to acknowledge them. You're doing a parade instead. Yeah. And this goes to the very heart, and I think it's really difficult. I can kind of have an empathy in terms of the historical reading that I've done over the years, and just in general, my kind of how I can view things. But I think it's very difficult for us in the West, in particular in the United States, because we are in a democracy. Yeah. If we don't like somebody, we vote you in. If we don't like you, we vote you out. Yeah. But the history of Russia, and then during the time where, at least politically, Ukraine was connected to Russia, in the imperial times with the Russian czars, the Soviet times under dictators from Lenin to Stalin to Brezhnev, all the way up to the end with Gorbachev, and now under Putin. There's an unbroken line or link with this kind of thinking, which is, if there's anything bad that has happened, it's happened, but we can't blame the leader because he didn't know. Yeah. But if we can go to him and if we tell him what happened, we've got a corrupt governor, a corrupt official, our road hasn't been fixed. The kind of the benevolence of their leadership, of their love for the people, we're going to see that then.
Yeah.
And in the Tsar's times, it was this. I think it's called Badushka. This like Tsar the father.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that changed when during the Soviet times with Stalin, it was he was Dadushka, the grandfather.
Yes.
Not Stalin, it was Lenin, grandfather Lenin.
Didn't they call Stalin
and
the Archangel? Didn't they call him the Archangel?
They might have. They might have. And that's just been part of that kind of propaganda that was growing up around that. But here's the thing to make it more relevant to us. Every year, President Vladimir Putin has a 4-hour call-in show where ordinary Russians can call into him, tell him what's going on, what the problem is, and then he will say, well, I'll fix it. Now, we may laugh because a woman called in a couple years ago and said, please tell my husband I want a puppy. This is true.
Yeah.
But for an outsider perspective looking into the United States, I'll give you a similar example. They must think that we're ridiculous that a president of the United States has to choose a turkey that lives and a turkey that dies.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So and we got to put it into a proper historical context here. So are they angry? Yes, but not for the reason why we might think. Yeah. The anger was this kind of covenant was broken. And much like with Tsar Nicholas II, right? The day of his coronation, there was a massive. There was thousands of people, that were there, and the Tsars, the soldiers, they did what they were trying to do in terms of crowd control. Things kind of got out of hand. People died. Instead of mourning, instead of saying, we're gonna hold off on the parties.
Yeah.
Nicholas went ahead with the coronation parties, and when the people found out about that, he immediately got the nickname Nicholas the Butcher.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that covenant, which he could have had, which maybe, I mean, it's a great historical what if, right? It maybe would have held off some of the bad stuff that would have happened to him later on. But it's another example. This covenant kind of relationship between the leader and the people, it's there, and it's not just for Russians, but also for the people that were part of that empire. And that included, of course, Ukraine now during the Soviet times. And so there's there's a generational remembrance of this mindset, maybe if you want to say tradition. So it hasn't gone away. So there's anger, yes, but not for probably what we would think.
Yeah.
It's for something deeper, something much more closer to the heart.
Yeah. We were watching Smithsonian the other day, and they were talking about how when you look at the demarcation zone that is contaminated for 10,000 years, it makes geographic sense, except for over here, there's this big circle. And it was because this blew me away. The Russians, the Soviets, would not cancel the May Day parade in Moscow or Kiev. And in the end, when the leadership saw this toxic, poisonous cloud moving toward Moscow, instead of canceling the parade, they seeded all the clouds in that area so it would rain.
Yeah,
and poison
with
the ground.
Silver iodine. They basically created fake rain.
Yeah.
Poisonous, and it basically it's over half of Belarus. I mean, they did this over basically half of modern day Belarus.
We were blown away that it was like, well, we'll poison more of Ukraine rather than cancel a parade. And we were just like, wow, okay. So, brother, do you see the current, well, let's do this first. In terms of the current war in Ukraine, the war of Russian aggression, whatever you want to call it, can you tell our listeners about the ties between the Russian Orthodox Church and Russian nationalism. Do you have info on that? Do you know about this, or is that more outside of your...
I know a little bit about it. Just, I have kind of independent, I have to say this, I mean, I'm not, my speciality is in European kind of studies, okay? Maybe I should have said this in the beginning when we were doing live, but I mean, I've taught courses on the common foreign security policy of the European Union. Mm-hmm. So Russia has very much been a part of my research, of my teaching, and so forth. But independent of that, Russia has held a fascination to me. Actually, President Putin himself, ever since he was appointed as vice president by Yeltsin in 1999, he has held a vast fascination with me. So I have followed this man's career, really, throughout these 20 plus years. So it's with some knowledge that I can say that actually to answer that question, it's a symbiotic relationship. Definitely. First off, orthodoxy, right? Orthodoxy it's kind of this loose configuration of individual churches. And they tie themselves more closely to an idea of ethnicity, right? Or maybe some kind of national myths or patriotism or whatever would be the case. But the result of that is they kind of internalize the particular religion. So that's why you have the Ukrainian Orthodox Church or the Georgian Orthodox Church or the Russian Orthodox Church. But the rhetoric and the history of the Russian Orthodox Church and its relationship vis-a-vis Russian leaders, the Russian government, Russian foreign policy, it's lockstep. Yeah. Lockstep. I mean, they're together on this. From Tsarist times, from imperial times, throughout the Soviet Union, where you would say, well, it wasn't communism, atheist, the churches still, however this may be allowed. Well, yes, it was atheist, but at the same time, they allowed a certain degree of religiosity to occur, but it was controlled by the state. And the Russian Orthodox Church allowed it to happen, much like what's happening in China nowadays, right? And the Catholic Church is there. Now, to take that a step further, this is where we see that lockstep between Russian foreign policy and Russian Orthodox Church policy. They conduct their affairs kind of in parallel conflicts. In a way that if there's a conflict in one country to deal with Russia, well, there's the ethnic group, or there's a Russian Orthodox minority there, and they need to be helped. They need to be supported somehow. There's what's the religious name? Ecclesiastical body. That should also somehow be supported. And this is where we can see, their policies in Chechnya. Georgia was kind of different a little bit, but in Moldova, in Estonia, and in Ukraine, and Ukraine is interesting, of course, because there's the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And there's big conflict between, of course, the Russian Orthodox Church and the Ukrainian Orthodox Church there. So much so, I think that a couple of years ago, both patriarchs excommunicated each other. That was a funny thing that ended up happening there. But in the post-Soviet sphere, it has continued. And, for the Russian Orthodox Church, for them, they are viewing, you have a high Orthodox population, extensively ethnically speaking Russian diaspora in other parts of the world. They need to be protected, or they need to be recognized that they belong somewhere. Yes. So there's that aspect of it, and it just it fits very nicely in the narrative that the Russian foreign policy is then going to put out there. Now, also with that being said, again, it's important to show the parallels here as to how. And I recall, in one of my answers to you, and I think you mentioned it in the second kind of part two, you gave some of my answers to some of your questions. The book Natasha's Dance, by it's really, really, for me, it was very profound, and it kind of it opened up to me two realizations that regardless of the century, there's essentially three things that Russians will always have or always try to stick to.
Okay.
And the first is they need a strong leader.
Yeah.
They need a church. And they need a strong sense of kind of folk or cultural kind of traditions to hold on to. And any leader who doesn't fit those three together will be immediately discarded. And we saw that with how, historically, how that happened with some of the czars.
Yeah.
And we also can see that in some of the interpolitical moral problems during the Soviet period.
Yeah.
But Putin, he learns. You know, he's a master reader of history. Now he has made some major strategic mistakes in Ukraine at the moment, but I would say that the man is still relatively smart, and he knows his history. And he realized, once he became president, that he needed to do essentially three things. He needed to become the strong leader, he needed the backing of the church, and he needed some form of like authentic Russian nationalism and
Yes.
that sense of culture or folk to keep him, to support him. And he has been very effective at doing all three. So it shouldn't surprise us that, he got the blessing from Patriarch Kirill a few years ago. That was major. And just a few days ago, Patriarch Kirill giving a speech, which essentially is saying, going into Ukraine, fighting this war, killing the people, doing what you're doing, soldiers, it's okay. God has kind of been giving you this mission. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, what his sermon was.
Useful.
But this just shows the support. This kind of lockstep that the two have together. So there definitely is a tie there between the two. Yeah.
It's that's really helpful, because I think it's a little tough for Americans who are not Orthodox to get. It's not like Romanism. It's not a central body. And I lived with a priest here who lived in Russia for a while and is an expert on Orthodox matters. And he always said this: Russian Orthodoxy is its own thing. It has no connection to any other Orthodox church. Sorry, bro. And I was just shocked to see how well that played out in this current war.
But it doesn't stop them from not claiming this kind of fantasy ideology that they're the Third Rome, and really using that as much as they can to the diaspora, to the Russians, that are around the world that are Russian. So
can you see, is it possible, likely, impossible, unlikely that this war stretch out into the rest of Europe? Is this going to stay in Ukraine?
I hope. I pray. And I think we all really need to pray that it doesn't spread, that it stays and it stops in Ukraine. Because Poland and the Baltic states, they're the obvious next targets, and it's been stated multiple times by Russian spokespeople. I think even former President and Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said this just like a week ago. And again, how much of that is bluster? How much of it is for kind of the domestic consumption, narrative, propaganda type of thing? But yet, what we on NATO's eastern flank have been saying for 20 years is, look, they look at us countries as lost territories.
Yes, they
not independent countries, but lost territories that should be regained. When President Putin said that the major catastrophe of the 20th century, not World War II, not World War I, the major catastrophe, or the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century, was the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Wow.
Collapse of communism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that puts it in, I think for me at least, that and for some of us who are, again, maybe more psychologically, historically inclined, that's got to put it into context. Okay, this is how the guy views everything that he's going to try to do in terms of his country's foreign policy, and how he responds then to countries that he views as existential threats. And he views these countries in the Baltics, in Poland, and in Ukraine as existential threats. I should say also, one of the takeaways that from that book, Natasha's Dance, for me was that Russia has historically, for centuries, had a bit of an inferiority complex.
Oh yeah.
So there's an overprojection, often of strength or of attitude, because ultimately there's this, I don't really know how to react in this situation. And whether that's because, I don't know if I'm Eurasian, Russian, European, it's it doesn't fit for Americans. We can't put it into a 60-second CNN soundbite, right? I mean, you and I have been talking, Father, for now almost 3 hours. Well, almost 2 hours. There's historical layers here that need to be, if not deeply understood, at least recognized as to why something would be said, or why a person would try to do something. But there's a view of kind of that existential threat. So, the Baltic countries, Poland and Slovakia, basically all the former post-Soviet countries, minus Ukraine, they're in NATO now. And over the last few months, they have really gotten more weapons, more NATO troops, more battalions have been sent. They're here, even here in Lithuania, and in Slovakia as well, Czech Republic, like in Poland. A new battalion was sent to Poland about maybe a month ago. And all of this is okay, we can say it's posturing by NATO, it's sending a signal to Moscow, don't do this. But the fact is, I mean, we would be prepared. I mean, militarily, we have the hardware.
Yeah.
And also, if it would, God forbid, stretch beyond Ukraine, Russia would encounter, or their allies, from Belarus, and they would encounter the exact same kind of resistance that they have right now in Ukraine. Because again, they're fighting offensive, and the people here will be fighting defensive. And I think it's you can't win people over by destroying your city.
Yeah.
And that's really where I think there's been some misjudgment.
Yes.
Done by the Russian military.
Well,
so I hope God. I mean, that should be our prayer, really.
Yeah.
That it doesn't. There's an unpredictable element here.
Yeah.
Just to be very, very honest, it is an unpredictable element, because as a scholar, I for months was saying to people who would ask, well, is Putin going to invade Ukraine? I would say no, because he doesn't want to have the heartache which Ukraine's going to cause him.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, I'm wrong. Again.
Well,
so you
but
can
I
take
think-
my knowledge and my insight with a grain of salt, basically, on this, baby.
But I think that makes sense, though, bro, because I was one of those guys, too. Because here was the thing. What I recognized was, of course, Russia wants Ukraine, right? Of course they do. But I didn't ever think they would try, simply because war is expensive. And I know that's terrible to say, but
I think the other thing for President Putin and for his very hierarchically based military leadership, they totally misjudged the local population.
yeah,
It's one thing to say, okay, we'll be perceived as liberators, and that's the reason why we're going to go in and do this. When a lot has changed. A lot has changed since 2014. A lot has changed since 2010 elections, 2008, 2004. I mean, it's a younger generation that they are very patriotically, I'll use that word, Ukrainian.
yeah,
and it doesn't matter that maybe their dad was Russian or their mom was I'm Ukrainian.
yeah,
And you're coming in here and you're going to try to take my house. Well, fine. First, you're going to have to kill me, and if you want to, and then maybe blow up the house, and I'll blow it up before I give it to you. It's that kind of mentality. And what's interesting is there are lots of older Ukrainians that statistically they lived through World War II. They maybe would be more sympathetic to Russians. Maybe they are ethnically Russian speaking themselves, even though they lived in Ukraine. But after what has been happening over the last several weeks, and they're being interviewed, and it's not Western propaganda, because I'm not watching the main news. I mean, my source is primarily shared amongst different contacts that I have, and they're sharing it. They're finding it, and these are from local people, basically. But they're crying. You got an old woman, a babka, right? Babka, grandma, and she's crying. Why would they do this? They're fascists. So it's kind of interesting how it's like the narrative was switched, where like for the Russians, like the Ukrainians were the Nazis, were the fascists that needed to be destroyed, but the Ukrainians are seeing what's happening to them, what the Russians are doing to them, and even though it's like, well, no, what are you doing? You're the fascist here. You destroyed my home, and I'm a 93-year-old woman. What did I do to you, and why are you doing this to me? So there was a major misjudgment as to the conditions on the ground. And going back to the first hour when I talked about just how the Ukrainian military has evolved, the basic command and control situation, especially on the field of battle, has changed dramatically, where they can adapt more and they know the terrain better than the Russian forces.
And what we do have some questions
maybe
from
you
our
can get to
listeners,
some of those.
And then and there's some so Russia, and I talked to them about how when the Soviet Union dissolved, Ukraine had most of the Russian nukes, and that they made an agreement, we'll give up those nukes to be in NATO, and NATO was like, okay. Then they changed it a little. You give up those nukes and you can petition to be in NATO, and we promise a process, right?
Yeah.
Is Russia in violation of that agreement, respecting Ukrainian sovereignty in exchange for the dismantling of nukes? Is that still in effect?
I'm going to switch.
Sure.
Maybe my audio is going to be better for you guys.
Oh, that is better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What'd you do, bro?
Well, I'm charging my phone.
Okay.
Phone battery. So I had to. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't have AirPods, so I have to go with the old school.
I've got these honking
version of it.
because I gotta have things that go over my hearing aids. So I have these honking.
Yeah. Oh shoot, I lost it again. The short answer is yes. Yes, they are in violation of it because Russia agreed to the territorial integrity, recognizing the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, and obviously they're not.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. How about this? We got a listener named Tom who wants to know, did Ukraine stop the flow of water in Dniester? Maybe Dniester River to Crimea? Can you tell us?
Sorry, Tom, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Got you. Do you
That
know that
I
river?
don't know.
Yeah. People would like to see your shirt. Are you willing to show us your shirt and explain it a little for us? Try not to flex though, because we don't want to drive the ladies crazy. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Yeah, I have the same problem.
But I have to say that I will explain it, because when I was showing it to some friends, at first they didn't really actually know what it was, and then I explained. So unfortunately, the design is good, but maybe on the black with the coloring, it's a little bit off. It could be. This is the thing. This comes with all national stories and myths and legends. You know, it could realistically be one pilot, or maybe it could be three pilots. But nevertheless, in the very early days of the war. Oh, jinx! I think we coughed at the same time.
Yeah, we're in stereo, bro.
Yeah. There was a Ukrainian pilot who was very successful at shooting down other planes and also destroying tanks. And he got or she, because there are female Ukrainian pilots, but they got the name, the Ghost of Kiev. And this has kind of been sprayed, all over the place. So in kind of recognition of that, and to support a local kind of print-on-demand shirt company, which decided to give all the proceeds directly to Ukraine, based on the shirts that they were making, I got this. So on the top, it says basically "Glory to Ukraine," Slava Ukraina. And then underneath is the helmet. This would be, the fighter pilot. You think of like Top Gun, Maverick. This is what he would be wearing, right? This is the black eyeglasses. But then right here, kind of spray painted, it says "Ghost of Kiev."
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we love it, bro. And I know "Glory to Ukraine" is a huge battle cry there. It really
is. Yeah.
And is that like their national anthem, or is that just a phrase that's "Glory to Ukraine"?
Well, it's rather historical. It goes back a few centuries, but it's in a way, it would be like for Americans saying "God bless America."
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think China will get involved? The question says China or NATO, but we already talked about NATO.
Yeah.
And to be clear, if Russia invades anybody not named Ukraine, NATO will get involved. That's the agreement, right? But What about China? Do you see China getting involved in any way in this?
No. Well, but yes, but not like militarily.
Okay.
China's waiting. They're very good at watching and just processing information.
Yeah.
The Chinese are very, very good at this. They're not going to do anything militarily because they have their own kind of territorial dispute with Russia, so they don't want to maybe aggravate that. But what they are willing to see from us in the West is really how hard our sanctions are going to be.
Yeah.
Because this, if it's still kind of, half-assed kind of, then they will maybe be willing to do a kind of a line of credit financially to help the Russian economy, or to help even maybe Putin. So that's why really the sanctions have to be, again, really more sanctions and even more intense, more harsh. And And then the second thing for China's involvement is, I think they're gonna kind of swoop in like that vulture on a dead carcass afterwards, and they're gonna say, okay, well, we'll help, but now you're gonna be in debt to us, all this, trillion yuan or whatever the final amount would be. That is, I think, their level of involvement. The calculations maybe would have been changed if Russian military advantages would have been more successful on the battlefield. But at this moment, and in considering how everybody is responding to President Putin and basically to the situation there, I think China is not going to really actually get involved.
Well, we had if you don't mind, we have one more question, and then we're going to get to the fun stuff, right, about you.
Okay.
But I had a prof from China at U of M who, now this was, this was the early 90s, but he talked about how shocked he was when he came to the U.S. and found out we didn't know that Russians and Chinese have been killing each other at that border in the thousands for years. Like, in his mind, to that day, there was a lot of exchanges. No, of course, formal declaration of war, no invasions, but some dispute about whose line goes where. I forgot all about that till you mentioned China and Russia have their own problems. Yikes. Well, brother, if you don't mind, one more of these type, and then we get into some happy questions.
Okay.
Do you have? How do you see this ending right now? Do you have any predictions, or it could do this or it could do that?
It has to end. I think it has to end with a total Ukrainian victory.
Yeah.
And I know that for some of the listeners, it might sound like I'm sounding the war drums on this.
No.
At this particular moment, there cannot be an off ramp, right? A diplomatic off ramp, which often is being still discussed amongst some of our leaders, either in Washington or in Europe. There can't be some form of negotiated settlement. Okay. A negotiated settlement essentially is to keep the status quo, which is the Donbass and Luhansk. Those regions then would be Russia. Crimea would be Russia. Ukraine would cease territorially to exist as it used to. It would essentially be cut, kind of pieced apart, and then everything that has happened in Ukraine, all the suffering that the Ukrainians have endured, all the deaths that have happened, all the heroism from just the regular citizens, the civilians going and trying to help to the other soldiers, all of that would be, to be brutally honest, that would be a betrayal. It would be a betrayal of everything like that.
And is Zelensky giving any sign that he would do that?
With each passing day and each passing week, that as an option, I think, just gets dimmer and dimmer, especially after the genocide in Bucha and in some other places have now been unearthed and been discovered. There's I don't think the willingness would be there. So it has to be a total Ukrainian victory. Anything else would be a betrayal to everything that's happened and the people and the lives that have been lost. But also, and I say this quite forcefully, because I do very passionately believe this, anything less is also a betrayal of our shared common values that we have in the U.S. and we have here in Europe. We then essentially would be saying to any authoritative leader, you can do this up until a certain point, and then we'll still be trying to negotiate with you. We'll still try to have a peace. And as long as it's not directly affecting us. Ukraine is us.
Yep.
It's us. and it is affecting us. And I think the sooner that we understand all of that, the better. And I think one of the questions from the audience was about the use of Hutu would use chemical weapons. The international community they're going to argue about how to verify the use of it. I think the simple fact is it has been used in some varying degrees already. They used it in Syria. The United States had a red line. The Obama administration had a red line. It was crossed. Yeah. We didn't respond. That is a green light. It was a lesson. Putin learned it. He's tried it again. It should not surprise us. It should not surprise us that the Russian general, which was in Syria, is now the Russian general in command of the Russian forces in the Donbass. And the very, very first thing that he did, I think it was on day one or maybe day two, was the quote unquote, and I'll put it in quotation marks because it's not confirmed yet, right, but the alleged chemical attack in Mariupol. So it shouldn't surprise us at all for that. Yeah.
No, that's super helpful. I, just a couple days ago, had a long talk. I spoke to a group of Chaldean Catholics a couple years ago, and it gave me some context in that community. And one of the things, there are many of them in the U.S. now, but 2 years, I don't know, my brain, but ISIS, like they said, it blows them away that the average American doesn't know or get that ISIS obliterated Christianity in the Middle East, ended it. That we watched on the news and went, those sons of bees. And then we lost interest and moved on to, some news about a Hollywood, person. And in the meantime, for the first time since Jesus rose from the dead, there's almost no Christians there. They effectively obliterated Christianity in the Middle East, and we watched. That's bad, and it's the same thing here. I do fear, like someone, not being a jerk, but after Mass Sunday said, "Boy, Father, you keep praying for Ukraine." I'm like, yeah, because in my brain, he can't stop. Right? He can't stop. That's not how evil works. Should Hitler have invaded Russia? No. Why did he invade him? Because he was nuts. And evil consumes. It can't stop. Right? And,
yes.
I look at, and again, I'm going to get emotional, but their suffering isn't this last year. They had about a 3-year reprieve of demonic, horrid suffering that's lasted about 80. And even, of course, longer. And it just astounds me.
Just a quick side story, but it's really relevant to the suffering. Again, in the West, I think we kind of think of it, there's the Ukraine war. Well, it started in February 2022. No, it started in 2014. Exactly. Actually, it started before that. But I was in Kiev in 2017. Okay. And I was able to, it's a lovely city. I was there with my wife, and we were walking next to the monastery. It's the famous blue monastery, right? Yeah. But you suddenly start seeing on the wall, and it's like marble plaque. Yeah. With names. And then the next plaque, names. Father, this goes on for I think at that time it was almost 2 blocks. That's the Ukrainian Vietnam War Memorial, and it's the list of every Ukrainian soldier that had at that time in 2014 had been killed in Donbass in the east. It's very real. It's very real to them. Right. And it should be very real to us as well. But I think you're correct. We tend to lose our focus, or at least our attention, because, it's not directly affecting us. So there's something else that, is suddenly on our radar. Yeah.
And I know, Kennedy kind of ruined the whole assassinate a foreign leader idea, but boy. I was listening. Did you ever listen to Robert J. O'Neill? I don't know if you ever. He's the guy who killed Bin Laden, and it's so wild how he's like, I'll never understand how the American government is so completely comfortable sending tens of thousands of us to kill and to die in the Middle East, when he says you could have sent 8 of us in there and we would have just killed the guy, and he'd be just as dead. Anyway, I shouldn't talk that way, but
it does bring up another potential ending. You're saying, how does this end? Well, it has to end with total Ukrainian victory. Well, what's going to happen to Putin? If these sanctions are really, really bad, and they start really pinching, interesting enough, not the pockets of these oligarchs in Russia, but the purses of the oligarchs' daughters and mistresses and third wives that are in Europe and in other parts of the world, they're going to then start looking at somebody else. Because, again, you had the Tsar, you had his court, you had the generals, you had the aristocracy. During the Soviet times, you had the leader, you had the Politburo, and then they had, the bureaucracy. Putin has reconstructed basically the same thing. You've got Putin, you've got the oligarchs, and then, it's so, if you pinch the oligarchs where they don't want to be pinched, there might be some kind of change.
He can only poison so many people, Okay.
Well, and listen, Father, I know you want to get to the rapid fire.
No, please.
But it's the teacher in me. Carrie shared to the audience. Carrie did share with me these questions. I'm going to very quickly answer some of the questions that you didn't ask that I wasn't able to get to yet, because I don't want any question not to be answered. Okay, so first one is, Putin is a former KGB man. Why basically are we expecting him to kind of negotiate for peace? Again, it's the West consistently misinterpreting and misunderstanding a man who acts rationally, but has a completely different set of rational thought. Okay, it doesn't fit our Western understanding. So that would be my answer to that. How do you argue that Ukraine is corrupt? A lot of that does come from misinformation. But to be fair, there was a lot of corruption, a lot of graft, a lot of nepotism in Ukraine following independence in '91. But that actually was the case throughout the former post Soviet countries, Central and Eastern Europe here, and it lasted probably for a good 15, maybe 20 years. In some cases, it still is continuing in some countries. But in Ukraine, the interesting thing is after Yushchenko, right after 2008, after Maidan, like the generation that's fighting now of Ukrainians, they're young, they're westernized. Even if they're Russian speaking and they're ethnically Russian, they're looking west. They see that, and they see that kind of as the model. They're not. They have a different set of priorities. They have a different mentality than maybe like their parents or even their grandparents did, which very much fit that kind of the old Soviet model, which was, if you're not stealing, you're stealing from your family.
Well, and I said this last time when someone brought this up, and I don't say this cynically, we are an incredibly corrupt government, and I don't want anyone banging on our doors. Let's say the propaganda is true, and I don't believe it is, but let's pretend it's true. Let's pretend that place is crazy corrupt. Does that mean Russia gets to invade? Where did that really come from?
Right. I mean, it's that's a fair point. Fair point to be made. I think the last question was, how often do I visit the U.S.?
That's the happy one I wanted to get to. Yeah,
before COVID, it was every year for Christmas, and then of course for 2 years I wasn't able to because of COVID. But just this past Christmas, I was able to come back and visit my parents, visit my sister, my family. Of course, we went. What do I really miss about the U.S.? I miss baseball. I miss actually watching baseball in real time and going to a baseball game. And this is where Father and I, we're simpatico on this. But for me, watching baseball, it always has to be like the next day, unless it's the playoffs, in which I may be lucky if I wake up at like 4 a.m. Because then I can watch it if it's a night game. Actually, when the Red Sox were 2018, they were in the World Series. Yeah. It was Game 6. It was that game that went like 14, 16 innings, something like this.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I basically was up the entire day because like I could not. I was watching it, but it was like I gotta go to sleep. No, you cannot go to sleep because you're not going to miss. It was like the minute you turn this off and you go to bed, then they end up winning. So I was up that entire inning, and then of course the craziness was like 4 hours later they had to play another game, which was awesome. Well, bro, but that's what I miss.
My commitment to you is next time you come to the States, I'll either work with my buddy in Green Bay and get you to a Brewers game, or we'll get you to a Tigers game in Michigan. Whatever works best for you good. And your beloved and your I saw 2 kids, is that right? 4.
Yeah, 2, but I actually got a total of 4.
That's right. So your squeakers and your beloved, we would be so honored. And Carrie said she's happy to pay for the whole thing.
Oh, thanks, Carrie.
Did you see this question, brother? What do you like most about living in Lithuania?
My wife.
Yeah.
I have to say that. She paid me.
Oh, you're getting me, man. Oh, okay. What beer is the best for you over there? Your favorite?
Czech beer, followed by Slovak beer.
Oh, Czech beer. Is Pilsner Urquell Czech?
Yeah.
Oh, that stuff is beast mode. It's awesome. Oh, I had that in '95 for the first time. I had a buddy who came back from Belgium, and he was like, and we couldn't buy it in the U.S. at that point, but he brought 6 bottles home.
When in Czech Republic and Slovakia, when the beer is cheaper than water, what are you going to choose? Right. Really?
Right. And is there a beer in the U.S. that you think can compare to what you've experienced over there?
No. But my beer of choice when I am in the U.S. is a St. Adams.
Oh, nice. Now, have you ever had Leinenkugel Original? Just Leinenkugel.
Oh, yeah.
Bro.
Yeah, sure.
That's the beer. Now, nothing I've ever had tastes like Europe. And I'm not a snob. I'll drink anything. But I gotta say, European beer is so much... It is so different and so much better. Like the Pilsners.
It's the water.
Oh, is it? Because there was
I think so. I actually, I'm saying this with a smile, but I actually think it's real.
Well, he says it's, but I know Americans tend to put rice in the beer instead of, like it's a filler. Yeah, it's weird. Budweiser in particular. But
I've never been a fan of them, actually.
I actually took a picture of this. Pot and I were in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in fact. Call it 3 years ago, but I'm terrible at the passage of time. I had a beer. This dude, I said to him, we're in frickin' Wisconsin. We want sausage and we want beer. And he said, I got a beer here. We get 1 barrel a year. And he said, this is the best beer I've ever had. It's made in Germany. And I took a picture of it.
Hasselweissen?
Oh, you know what? Wheat beer screws with my stomach.
Mine too. I think Pilsner is good, but I'm more of a lager fan. Like I'll go with Ambers here. It's a really, really,
Well, darn it,
my wife really likes wheat beer, but that's where we differ.
We'll pray for her.
Yeah. It's I don't want to say it's a cause of division within our marriage.
Right, because she's wrong.
But I asked her. This is legitimate. She said, "What do you need? What would you like from the store?" I said, "Beer." She said, "Okay." She brought back 2 cans, and they were wheat. And I said, "Why?"
Yeah.
Really?
If you need me to sit her down and lay it out, bro,
I think some pastoral counseling may be called for on this issue.
So now, brother, we're so glad. We wanted to really get you to that last question, which will then be our lead-in to the speed round. Now, are you familiar with the speed round?
Right. In preparation for this, I watched a couple other guests, and I saw some of the
I've heard some of the questions, but Jesus, Carrie, this is like a rather extensive list here.
Well, no.
Oh, he's looking. You can't look. You can't look.
You can't look.
I thought you were.
I can't look.
I thought you were a good man. I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, bro, these are intense, brutal. People have died. These questions are so important.
Can you wait? Because I have to grab the holy water then first.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Okay.
We've prepared all the proper legal documents.
Okay.
There should be a courier at your door any moment. Brother.
Let's go.
We not only are doing the questions we usually do, we fiddled around a little bit and came up with the European edition.
The European edition.
How do you say yes? Is it talk? Is yes talk? Or is that just Polish? Talk.
No. You're right. It is talk.
Okay.
And here, talk ano in Slovak and in Czech, and tape here.
Oh, nice.
Which is not spelled TAPE, it's TAIP, but it means yes.
That would be too easy, bro. Yeah. Okay, so if you're ready, brother, we're going to start.
All right.
And if at some point you begin weeping, we'll give you time. We'll give you time because we love you. All right. So, Chevy or Ford?
Ford.
Text or phone call?
But Ford F-150. Let's be specific. I want a truck.
But you want an F-150 over a Silverado?
Yay!
Now, if I can get any modern truck, But if I can get an old vintage truck which still runs, well then come on, then it's a Chevy, of course.
Oh, yeah. Do you ever watch Iron Resurrection? It's one of my favorite things.
No.
Dad,
is that one of the questions? Do I like reality shows? Because the answer right now is no.
But this is a good one. There's no fake drama. It's just them building.
It's all fake. It's all fake.
Right. That's what I mean. But this one doesn't do any of that. They're just like, here's a truck frame. We got a C10. We're gonna build it, and that's what they do. And there's no are we gonna make our deadline? They don't give a crap about deadlines. These guys are artists. Oh, anyway. All right. Text or phone call?
I'm sorry?
Text or phone call?
Big on phone call. I don't like texts.
Okay. Mac or PC?
I am 100% an Apple person, so give me a Mac any day.
Jesus' favorite. Movie or book?
Yeah, because of course we know Jesus used Macs, and that was how it is.
But did you know he drove a Honda? Did you know this? Because it says in the Bible that he and the disciples were all in one accord.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to apologize to you, bro.
Well.
Yeah.
Well, you know how Moses. Here we go. You know how Moses took his coffee.
Oh yes.
He brews it.
Beautiful. Paris or Rome?
Wow. Gosh. No, that's French. No, Rome.
All right. London or Rome?
I'm sorry, London
or Rome?
No, still would go with Rome.
All right. Paris or London?
There you go.
London.
That's what the Germans said. Mountain. What was that? Was that out loud? What? Mountain or seashore?
Oof. Can I, like Kirk in the Kobayashi Maru, change the parameters and say that it's based on seasons?
Okay.
I will go hiking in the mountains for the late summer, early autumn, and for the late spring, early summer, then seashine.
Nice. Oh, hey, here we go. TNG or the original Star Trek?
Oof. I'm a TNG boy. I grew up with them.
Me too.
So I have to go with them, though. Purely for nostalgia effect, I will rewatch a couple of the originals.
Sure. I was so smitten. What was this? 88, right? 1988 or so, with Tasha Yar. And
hey, Denise Richards was my first crush. Let's just be honest. It was, I think, for everybody.
Bro, and then I found out she was Bing Crosby's daughter. Did you know this?
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Warm beer.
Well, here's real quick though. Star Trek trivia. Did you know that she originally was auditioned for Consular Choice?
I think I remember that because, to be honest, I couldn't stand Troy. She was the worst character on the show, in my opinion. And so when because I remember hearing that and thinking she would have done a better Troy. Marina Sirtis?
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps.
I remember her.
Well, it worked out the way it worked out.
Yeah. Denise Crosby and Marina Sirtis. I think I'm saying her name right. Cold beer or warm beer?
Absolutely cold beer. Like, who really? Like, the British are just weird in this way. I mean, I love the British. I'm an Anglophile, but they're just stupid.
Yeah.
Warm beer.
Well, it messed their heads up. Okay, anyway. Car or train?
Yeah. Where am I going?
Yes.
Around Europe.
Well, if you're German, you're going through Belgium into France. That worked out great for everybody.
A train.
Oh, vacation or holiday?
I say holiday because I've lived here for so long.
Okay.
And then actually, and I think it just makes more sense too.
Sure.
Holiday.
Well, and
going
let's
on
see,
holiday.
bro, how European you've become, because this is the question that will determine it. Speedo or swimsuit?
I still. Well, I'm a nudist. No.
A nudist is somehow better than a Speedo. Can we all agree on that? At least in the nudist, they're like, yes. In the Speedo, they're like, yeah, ish.
I have to say that I wear a swimsuit, but
Dear
I
God,
have
'cause your
one
hesitation
time,
scared the snot out
much
of
to
me.
my shame.
We will delete
Sorry?
every show. If you hesitated, and I thought, if he says Speedo, we have to delete everything.
I was hesitating because I was like, how kind of raunchy should I be on this?
Not at all. I said piss poor earlier in the show. I'm fairly sure I'm going to get some letters. No, more importantly, our bishop will get some letters. Did I tell you guys this? That someone wrote the bishop and said, he should take me off the air, and I didn't even know I was on the air, because I lack the dignity of the priesthood. And so Bishop Earl, next time he saw me, he brought it up, and he's giggling, right? And I went, do you really think so, Bishop? Okay, monarchy or republic?
A republic, if we can keep it.
Okay. France, friend or foe?
There is a France.
Do you ever think we should just give it to the Germans? You know what I mean? It'd be like they want it really bad.
What constitution are they on now? What, the 5th, the 6th?
I'm so stupid. Do you ever read Mike Duncan? You ever read or listen to his stuff? He did a thing. So he did a podcast called Revolutions. And he did, first we'll start with the American Revolutions, and it was an 8-part lecture, a fine lecture. Then he went through the Haitian Revolution. It was a 10-parter, fantastic. And then he got to the French Revolution. And on episode 92, I think I hated... I have to stop talking. It's like, just decide, guys. You know what I mean? Pick. Oh, all right. Vodka, potato or rye?
Well, they definitely taste different, but it's actually not my preference. I don't like vodka.
Okay.
I like, though, plum brandy, which is called Slivovitz or Slivovica, and it's delicious.
He strokes his beard thoughtfully.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you go to, I'll tell you, I don't know, just go to some liquor store that has world stuff imported and ask, probably either it's going to come from Poland or maybe from Croatia.
Okay.
It would be called Slivovitz. And it's basically, just say, hey, I want some plum brandy from Croatia or from Poland. And they'll say we don't have it, or these people won't. It's delicious. You have it when you think you're getting sick. You can have it when you don't think you're getting sick, and you stay healthy.
And you can have it when you suspect somewhere in the world someone is sick.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, in fact, you might be the guy. I know you're not Germany guy, but here's the thing. I had a drink from Germany, and it so blew me away that when I got back to the U.S., it is literally true for 3 years. I would periodically look for it, and in the end, I ordered it from Germany. They shipped it. It came to my door 6 months later, and I basically got a stern, you can never do this again, that somehow they shouldn't have shipped this to me. But those bottles disappeared. I don't know how it could have happened. But it looks like the word Edeler, Etoler, and it's a yellow liqueur. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so, yes.
Do you know if I'm saying it right? Edeler, Etoler. I couldn't figure out how to say the word. Mm-hmm. But if you ever see
and it has like a wheat, like on the brand or the picture, doesn't it?
A leaf?
No, wheat, like a wheat stalk.
I'll have to. Boy, it's been forever. I haven't thought of this in forever because the customs people made it super.
I have your phone number, so I'll take a picture and send it to you.
Okay, yeah. It's yellow and it tastes. I've never tasted anything akin to it, and I don't like liqueurs at all. But I think this is a liqueur.
Editor? I think so.
I think it's each.
I think I know what you mean.
Okay, we'll have to check it out. Oh, anyway, sorry. Facebook or Twitter?
I'm more Twitter.
Cat
Facebook.
or dog?
Oh, definitely a dog.
Yes. MSU or some lesser school?
That's a tough one. Because there's only one right answer, and it's the school that uses one too. So it's MSU.
Yes. Yeah. Praise the Lord. All right, now this one is challenging. Cake or pie?
You cut out. You said cake or pie?
Yes.
Like what I would say if I'm ordering.
Which one's better, cake or pie? And if you pick the wrong answer, Poland's going down next.
Yeah, but that's kind of tough though, Father, because like, can I have a choice of what pie you're giving me? No.
I don't make the rules. I just write the questions. Okay, number one dessert. What dessert are you going to pick?
Apple pie.
Okay, pie. Pie wins. See?
I guess so. Though I do like a tiramisu with a nice hot espresso.
Sure. Bro, do you know someone...
So, that's a cake.
Oh, yeah. 2 Saturdays ago, someone brought me a mincemeat pie. And I told them, you can kill women and old people, and you will still go to heaven. You bring me mincemeat? All right. Let's see. Some of these are American questions, so I'm blowing by them. Plus, our time is short.
Yeah.
Hot dog or hamburger? They probably don't have good hot dogs over there, do they?
Brat over a burger. I mean, come on.
That's the whole deal.
I'm from Wisconsin. Yeah. And it has to be Johnsonville.
Bro. And you know what I loved in Wisconsin?
But if you're talking about hot... Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, let her rest.
Well, I was just going to say, if we're talking about hot dogs, then it would have to maybe be Hebrew dogs.
Hebrew Nationals are real good. Did you ever have any of them from Usingers in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Sure. Oh. Yeah, really good.
Augustine or Aquinas?
I think I can understand Augustine more than Aquinas, so I'll go with him.
You know, that's why Aquinas is a saint. Did you know this? Because God brought him to heaven so that Aquinas could explain to God what the heck he was talking about. Okay.
Makes sense.
We already got that one. Okay, pool or beach?
Beach.
Huh?
Because why beach? Why would I want to swim in chlorinated urine?
Because there's no sharks there. Yeah.
Depends on where you are.
In the Great Lakes. Anyway. Okay, then final question. New car or classic car?
Oh, classic car.
Yeah, me too. I tell you what, my dream, bro, is a loaded C10. Right, one of those old Chevy C10, or a 69 or 70 El Camino, just to white trash it up. Yeah, that's my tribe, and you know I'd put flames on it. I mean, that's going to happen.
Of course.
Yeah.
On the hood as well as on the side.
Yeah, we're not barbarians.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wanted to see how trashy you wanted to be, so you passed. That's good.
Well, Doc, we got to wrap it up. But we're so thank you, and please thank your wife and your kids for sharing you with us today. I know time's precious, with a family, and the fact that they kind of let you let us have you for the last 2.5 hours has been a ridiculous blessing, bro. Well,
it's been a pleasure of mine, a privilege of mine to answer your questions and answer the questions from the audience. But it's also been fun.
It's been
fun. So thank you, Father.
Yeah,
thank you.
And what we're going to do, with your permission, is every once in a while, maybe even ask you, if you're willing, to either make a little video or pop something on and just talk us through, well, this is what's going on now. I think if you don't reject the title, you are the official historian for what am I? Joe and Black Ministries.
All right.
Yes, and it comes.
I accept because of the money.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
To be honest, I'm only doing it for the money.
To give you a sense of things, just think of what we're paying you now. Double it. I'm just saying. And then ready? I got 3 words for you: free health care. Yeah, because you have it over there,
what happened.
Right?
Yeah, but I know that's what happens when you work for Jesus.
Right.
You get free health care. So
there's free health care over there, right? Where you are?
Sure.
Yeah,
part of your package.
That's what Americans think. Yeah. Everything's free.
I always tell people that when they're like, "Well, they have free health care." I'm like, "Oh no, people pay, just not the sick people." So anyway,
do you want to know the flat tax that we have? It would make most Americans say we need another revolution.
Well, that's what I confess. A part of me gets I've been all over Europe, right? And I've spent a ton of time there. And I learned to tell people I'm Canadian. Because if you say you're an American, all they can talk about how awesome their country is and how bad U.S. sucks. If you say you're a Canadian, they'll tell you how messed up their healthcare system is. Right?
Those responses are quite interesting. You get... One of the things that I realized is, in all seriousness, as an expat, you are an unofficial ambassador of your country. And I don't think a lot of people get that. It's like, I'm living abroad, I'm living whatever. Yeah. But you are the embodiment of your home country's culture, of the language, of the people. And sometimes it can be a burden.
Yes.
But it's a burden that I bear.
Yes,
with
beer.
Yes.
Well, all right. Well, my brother, I ask that the Lord bless you and everybody listening to this, I ask that the Lord deliver the people of Ukraine from war, and that He drive the invader from their midst. And I ask, Lord, that you strengthen the spines and brains and blood of our leaders so that they can guide us toward justice. And may Almighty God bless everyone listening to this, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Doctor, thank you. We're so grateful you're here.
Yeah. Thank you guys very, very much. It was a pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Is it over?
No, it's never over.